And with that, I would like to briefly introduce our three wonderful guest panelists speaking on this general topic of what we call from resilience to restoration. But specifically tonight, what we are addressing is the question of electrification, specifically the electrification of transportation and what that has to do with people of faith. Both Alabama Interfaith Power and Light, as you might imagine, and the People's Justice Council are interfaith organizations. And our first panelist is Ileagh MacIvers with our National Interfaith Power and Light, National IPL, as we say. Ileagh will be introducing herself and telling you about her work, as will our second and third panelists of the evening. Our second panelist is the Reverend Emily Carroll with Green the Church out of Louisiana. And our third panelist is Warren Tidwell from right here in Alabama with an organization called Across Alabama that he will be talking about. But I'd much rather them tell you about themselves and their work than y'all hear it secondhand from me. So with that, Ms. MacIvers, please take us away.
All right. Thank you so much, Kyle. My name is Ileagh MacIvers. I am the Clean Cars organizer at the National Interfaith Power and Light office. And thank you so much for your time. Before I start my slides, I'll introduce myself a little bit more. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Houston, and I am still based in Houston, Texas. I studied political science at the University of Houston, and my new passion is transportation and getting us to that zero carbon and zero emissions future. I am a Quaker and I'm an attender at Live Oak Friends meeting here in Houston. And my faith has called me to act on climate. So let me share my slides. Are we good? We seeing them? Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so my section of the presentation is entitled EVs and Faith, My Work at Interfaith Power and Light. So to get started, I just wanted to talk about some basic facts around transportation pollution. Because honestly, when I started this job about 8 months ago, I didn't know the specifics of how damaging transportation pollution is. Of course, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know that transportation is the #1 source of climate pollution in the United States. And also that the pollution associated with burning fossil fuels like gas and diesel have been linked to early death, heart attacks, respiratory disorders, strokes, and asthma. And probably most shocking is that in the United States and in the US alone, more than 350,000 premature deaths in 2018 were attributed to fossil fuel burning. So just a little bit of a briefer on the transition to clean transportation. We are advocating for a multifaceted approach because we understand that transportation is so multifaceted. There's so many different issues within transportation. And each kind of transportation really requires a slightly different approach to get to net zero and zero emissions. So we work on light duty passenger vehicles as well as heavy duty vehicles. That's classes 3 through 8, if you're familiar with heavy duty weight classes. We also advocate for other transportation systems like micro or e-mobility, think e-bikes and scooters, as well as walking and biking infrastructure. So I'm going to start off with probably the most important reason in my mind why EVs matter, and that is a matter of environmental justice. So transportation pollution affects low wealth and communities of color disproportionately, since these communities are most likely to be located near major trucking corridors and freeways. Therefore, they're exposed to the most pollution on the most regular basis. And again, justice and equity are imperative in this fight for clean transportation. And it's how we really guide our work to make sure that the people who are already being disproportionately exposed to this pollution are not being left behind by advocates or organizers who don't hear them. So we are always prioritizing justice and equity in our work. So another obvious reason why EVs matter is because of the environment. So burning fossil fuels for transportation can create smog and soot, which are harmful types of air pollutions. But also, the emissions from fossil fuel burning vehicles can also cause acid rain, eutrophication, which is when excessive nutrients harm aquatic ecosystems by lowering oxygen levels. It can damage crops and forests, and it can harm wildlife. I think the big takeaway here is that burning fossil fuels is genuinely killing us. We might not see it, and it might be a slow death, but really it is harmful for every living being, as well as the whole of our planet. And then moving on to public health, a new study that was released earlier this year actually illustrated that in California, EVs are making a measurable difference in air quality, which is huge for this transportation community. This study found that for every 20 ZEVs, that's zero emission vehicles, which might be electric vehicles or hydrogen vehicles in California, for every 20 of those ZEVs added to a community of per 1,000 people, the study showed a 3.2% decrease in asthma-related emergency visit rates, as well as a marginal decrease in nitrogen oxide levels. And this is huge. This is the concrete evidence to show that EVs are directly tied into our air quality. And specifically for the Gulf Coast states, in 2022, the American Lung Association found that Birmingham continues to have some of the worst air quality in the Southeast. And I'm sure that in other states, and I can speak for myself as a resident of Houston, the air quality is exceedingly poor in our area, both in terms of ozone as well as particulate pollution. So in fact, the area around Birmingham, Alabama, received an F grade for ozone pollution. And while year-round particle pollution levels in 2022 were their best ever, it's still among the nation's worst, and it's the third worst in the Southeast for particulate pollution. And for those who may not know, particulate pollution from cars, it's known as PM 2.5, and it's smaller than 2.5 microns, which is so tiny that it gets very deep into your lungs, which is why it's so damaging for your respiratory system and for your body as a whole. So moving on to my work at IPL and how we deal with these issues of pollution. So again, I work as the Clean Cars organizer, and my work is split up into two different categories. So on one hand, we have clean car standards. And these are both state and national level, although I primarily work at a national level for both light and heavy duty. And then automaker accountability, which I won't particularly be talking about today, but I will. There are some resources at the end of this presentation, which I will share with all of you, where you can read more about it if you're interested. So clean car standards on a national level are how our government agencies regulate the carbon pollution from our vehicles. So these are developed by EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and on a state level, the most influential body is CARB, the California Air Resources Board. And these are a key factor in the transition to cleaner cars and EVs. And for those wondering, CARB, the California Air Resources Board, is a critical player because of the Clean Air Act. So this power of EPA and CARB to regulate this pollution comes from the Clean Air Act. So it's well established through historical standard and historical precedent. basically, before the Clean Air Act passed, California already had clean car standards on a state level because their air pollution was so bad and their air quality was exceedingly poor. So the Clean Air Act granted California the ability to set their own standards, which are often more stringent than the national standard. So almost always, we advocate for the most stringent possible rules on the most expedited timeline. And these standards help increase the market share of EVs, even if they don't include an explicit EV requirement. They also help to reduce pollution from standard ICE cars, meaning that if you are theoretically uninterested in buying an EV, your regular gas model is still being more efficient, which, guess what, saves you money at the pump. So these really are multifaceted standards. So our organizing activities in this area include comment drives, testifying at public hearings, sign-on letters, blog posts, and more. And these are photos of our president, Reverend Susan Hendershot, and our federal policy associate, Madison Mayhew, delivering our letter signed by faith leaders calling on EPA to commit to strong clean car standards. So, big news in the clean car standards space is that on April 11th, just about 2 weeks ago, EPA announced the next round of clean car standards. And for context, this is huge because this only occurs about every 5 years. So these announcements and these proposed rules have a lot of power over the next generation of cars. So in our viewpoint, the light-duty standards for passenger cars and trucks, they are projected to cut carbon emissions from tailpipes up to 69% compared to 2026, which is truly historic, and that is an incredible achievement. However, the proposed rule for heavy-duty vehicles really does need to be stronger, since that represents a disproportionate amount of carbon pollution as compared to light-duty vehicles. And at this point, the current heavy-duty vehicle rules they are not in line to meet our climate goals. And that is my presentation. Our current activities surrounding the new standards are going to be comment drives and sign-on letters from people of faith calling on EPA to commit to the strongest alternatives whenever possible and to expedite the timelines in order to get these rules in before they can be challenged by a potentially unfriendly future president. And we are also testifying at public hearings, which are happening in these next couple of weeks. So we are making the faith voice heard and making sure that people of faith are duly represented in the fight for clean transportation. And these are some resources with links. Again, I will send this presentation out to you all probably through Kyle, and thank you so much for listening. I think we'll have time for Q&As at the end.
Thank you so much. Yes, indeed. We will gladly share any slides or other links and presentation materials along with the recording of this presentation. So have no fear, those of you that are joining us late, welcome. This is being recorded, so you're welcome to catch up on anything that you have missed. Our next speaker is Rev. Emily Carroll with Green the Church in Louisiana. And again, I'm going to let Rev. Carroll tell you more about herself and her work and her particular perspective on people of faith and the electrification of our transportation system. Please take it away, Rev. Carroll.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Reverend Emily Carroll. I serve as the pastor of Shady Grove United Methodist Church in Mansfield, Louisiana, and I serve as a in the capacity of Executive Director for Green the Church Louisiana, which is an affiliate chapter of Green the Church National. And so I'm excited to be here on this evening because this topic is one where we recognize that there is a revival in the midst. There is a revival of the recognition that we as God's people must do our part. And when we do our part, it includes a list of to-dos. So I'm excited about the previous presentation from IPL because she told us a lot of the whys, a lot of the science, a lot of the technicalities of why this is important as far as electrifying our spaces and places. And at Green the Church, we're excited to be able to offer tools, right? We're excited to be able to offer the ability to do some of these things. We are excited, yes, to participate in public comment and to participate in public hearings and to definitely fight for regulations to be tightened so that we might have lower emissions and lower toxins in the air. Yes, we have to reduce our carbon footprint and reduce our carbon emissions and reduce pollutants in the air. And so I wanted to bring a presentation today to just speak a little bit about how we at Green the Church utilize what God has given us in our hand as a way of a tool towards this bigger scope of creating a space and a place where individuals can do more than just survive life, but to thrive in life. And so I want to share a presentation on today. And so I am going to share my screen. And as I begin to share my screen, I hope you don't see too much of what's going on my computer right now. But I want to, in essence, share this slide from the beginning. And I'm working my way. And let's go from the beginning. And then we're going to go here. So I want to just give a moment and say, Green the Church. So can you all see my screen? Can I get a thumbs up or something? Thank you, Brother Powell. And so Green the Church, how it all began, we began in 2008, where our director, our founder, Reverend Pastor Ambrose Carroll, came across a book called The Green Job Economy. So even as a pastor in that place and space, important and realizing that we as God's children and leaders within the faith community are in essence given this charge to uplift one's spiritual life. But even in this dynamic of uplifting one's spiritual life, there was a recognition by Pastor Carroll to check this book out that talked about the green job economy. Always this mindset of how our people can be blessed in more ways than just their spiritual walk, but also their tangible walk. So he reads this book, he becomes a fellow, and then Green the Church is created or incubated. And as time goes on, it in essence become its own entity. So Green the Church, waking up the sleeping giant. There has never been a social movement in this nation without the leadership of the Black church. And that's why I say that we are in a space and place of a revival. In essence, with all of these R's that need to take place, reducing carbon footprint and reducing carbon emissions and reducing the pollutants in the air. And so first and foremost, everything that we do is in essence has a foundation of amplifying green theology. And when we amplify green theology, we find ourselves promoting sustainable practices and we find ourselves building power for political and economic change. These are in essence verbs, action words, right? And so these are some of the summits that we have done in the past where we're always ecumenical in what we do. We have had partners and summits in churches that were Church of God in Christ, that were Baptist, that were United Methodist, that were UCC, and we've always partnered with individuals because we know that no man is an island and God didn't put us on this earth for us to do things by ourselves. It takes the work of others in order to partner one with the other so that we all can go and we all can grow. And so one of our approaches is this African proverb, I am because we are. In essence, we recognize that it takes partnership not only with the national entities, but working in connectional spaces, the AME Church, the Congress of National Black Churches. So one of the things about Green the Church is our focus is intentional about uplifting the Black church space and communities. And so with that, one of the tools that we've been privileged of, in essence, having is the assistance of the Department of Energy. And we were a part of Solar Energy Innovation Network, SIN is what they call it, and been able to travel to Denver and be a part of working groups on how to address barriers to equitable solar and renewable energy. And so 2 projects that came up out of that work is McGee Avenue Baptist Church, a church in Berkeley that will have, they've already signed off to have solar in their places of worship. And they did it right before NEM 3.0. So they were able to be grandfathered in to NEM 2.0, as was mentioned regarding the fight as far as the benefits of having solar. The second congregation that will benefit is New Hope Baptist Church, a church that's right alongside the freeway in Oakland, California, a pastor, Pastor Robert E. Pearl. So our goal and our desire is to, in essence, create these spaces of solar, not only solar, but EV. An additional church that we have partnered with is the Allen Temple Baptist Church. We got to get some sister pastors in this conversation. And so it's pastored by that Jacqueline Thompson, and they were able to gather and place solar and battery storage on their building through a partnership with Tesla. And so we say all of this because one of the dynamics of Green the Church creating a clean energy hub, we've had various projects with various churches. This is in essence a grid. This is in essence a markup of a church that's called Glad Tidings Baptist Church. Now, Glad Tidings is not only going to include solar panels, but it will include what we're talking about today as it relates to EV charging stations. And these EV charging stations are slated to be located within the parking lot of these churches. And it's going to be a way that's going to enhance the neighborhood. It's going to give a space and place for all of these EV cars that were mentioned earlier and the need to reduce carbon, but there's going to have to be a form of electricity that's going to be needed. So we at Green the Church have come up with a clean energy hub concept that is inclusive of solar and EV charging stations. And so we are definitely wanted you to see this and wanted you as everyone on this call to be aware of some tools that are actually being used, that are tangible, that are ways that churches can utilize everything that God has given them, not only the building for worship, not only the fellowship hall to fellowship, but even the parking lot in order to benefit God, air, place, community, congregation, the neighborhood. And so we are excited to do this work. What I also wanted to share with you during this time is I also wanted to share, in essence, our website. So if anyone is interested from a perspective of your congregation, you please feel free to visit www.greenthechurch.org. And if you flow down to where we talk about Green the Church wanting to be your renewable energy developer, we're partnering with an entity called Gemini Energy Solutions to help make these advancements in our infrastructure a possibility within our churches. And so with this and with this website, what I wanted you all to see was this space and place where we're introducing clean energy benefits, solar panel install, consider EV charging stations. It's time for the Black community to join the renewable energy revolution. And so feel free to visit this page to gain more information. If you as a congregation or anyone that represents a church where you say, hey, I want my church to be a part of this, we definitely encourage you to visit this site. I will drop it in the chat. And you all as a church can become an associate congregation with no charge. It's a way of gathering some information so that we can give you information so that you will have tools in order that we may all recognize that there is a revival in the midst and God has given us everything that we need in our hands. Thank you.
Amen. And if we were all sitting in pews right there, you'd be getting all kind of all kind of feedback. Thank you all, and yes, please, anyone feel free to put links in the chat. Green the Church is there, but we want to introduce our next speaker, Warren Tidwell with Across Alabama, and his organization is so new. I don't know much about it yet, so I'm looking forward to learning from Warren. And if you're not excited yet, you will be when you hear what Warren is up to right here in Camp Hill, Alabama. Take it away, Warren.
Thank you. I was going to say, I've been working about 14, 15-hour days every day since March 26th here in Camp Hill because we got one of the worst hailstorms on record. So I'm yawning, but it's not because of the awesome folks, the presentations. I had to turn the camera off. I don't know if y'all have ever yawned so hard you got a cramp in your jaw. Yeah, that's no fun, especially when you got to present something like this. But I'm the director of the Alabama Center for Rural Organizing and Systemic Solutions. This is an organization that has been formed in the past few weeks as a result of the needs here in Camp Hill. I'm formerly the Community Resilience Coordinator for Hometown Action and Hometown Organizing Project, but the needs here don't fall under the long-term mission of what they do. So when I came here 2 years ago, working on various things from food scarcity issues, this is a town of 1,000 people. 50% live below the poverty line. We have no grocery store. We have no pharmacy. We have no laundromat. And so as a result, this hailstorm, which was softball to grapefruit-sized hail over this 2.5 mile size town for 20 minutes, it has decimated us in a way that's hard to describe. You don't think about hailstorms necessarily when it comes to climate disasters being on this scale, but I believe this is a harbinger of future storms. We currently have about 400 to 450 roofs that need replaced. We lost 80 to 90% of our cars. They were totaled, including all 50 in public housing. And so we started the organization here, and thankfully, as a Universalist and a humanist, the Universalist Church here has given us the 100-year-old parsonage to renovate, to oversee the long-term recovery, to headquarter across. And shout out to the Methodists who are finishing the renovation for us, Auburn United Methodist, so that we can actually have a space to do this. Because this town, the Baptist church I'm currently sitting in, they bought with $77,000 of ARPA funds. It had come up for sale. And you'll see above me maybe like some of the leaks from the hailstorm. This hailstorm went through metal roofs. It went through shingles. It went through the decking under them. It went through the drywall inside. It damaged things in houses. It broke things in houses. And we have a number of folks here who are, a lot of disabled folks, a lot of folks who are developmentally disabled. We have folks who are who have a lot of health issues. And so it's a particularly vulnerable population. But they allowed us to set up here for the time being. And this town is they didn't have grounded plugs in the town hall before they moved over to this, to kind of tell you what kind of shape the town was in. But we are the only nonprofit operating in this little town. And we're before with the organization I was working with. Give you a little bit of a history of me personally. I've been doing grassroots disaster recovery for about 25 years. I've worked just about every big disaster in the southeastern United States. Spent 2 years on the ground in New Orleans and Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. I've worked in very isolated rural places. And so when this hit, I knew exactly what's coming, because we are already not getting the attention that we need and not getting the volunteers that we need. So these towns, we often talk about frontline communities facing the climate crisis. Well, I'm coming to you live from one. And on top of that, the volunteer fire department, who has done an amazing job. They're one of the main parts of my team. You probably heard about the shooting in Dadeville, the mass shooting. That affected us. That was a party. It's 10 minutes away for some of our people. So not only do we have people displaced from this hailstorm, we have folks who have children who have been severely injured in a shooting. This town only has 1,000 folks. It might be the first town in U.S. history to be dealing with a climate disaster and a mass shooting at the same time. So I really didn't have a choice but to do something new. and to bring all the talented folks that I could, and to get the focus of the folks who are working on these climate issues on this little town. But I'm a mechanic and I'm a service advisor before this. I'm a blue collar guy who, in between all of this organizing, I would work at a shop. And it's kind of how I run my things here. We got a case management system where we are triaging the biggest needs. We've had things like Team Rubicon come in. As I said, United Methodist Church, Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints have sent in truckloads of food. The faith-based organizations have kept this from being a humanitarian crisis at this point. And so for me, being who I am, I kind of take a common sense look at some of this stuff. And for years and years of working these disasters, which I now, of course, no longer call natural, they are climate disasters, I came into possession of a Prius. And this is a car that, as we very well know, of course, it's my favorite thing in the whole world. Now I'm about to tell you all about it. But people are so strange about them, and they get these strange, like, just an attitude. So when I first got it, people were like, can't believe you got a Prius. Well, what I realized is they're just rolling generators. And so I installed a 2000 watt inverter in it. And that allowed me to build this setup for disaster recovery, where I can charge 40 cell phones at once. I can provide satellite internet for these rural places as like a workstation for them, charge their phones as well. On top of that, I've installed a refrigerator because a lot of times we lose power, we need places for insulin. And in the South, of course, that is a big consideration. And when I realized that the AC works just like in our house, well, I built myself a place to sleep. I'm not a very big guy. So I can stay on the ground and do all of these things. And then when the power goes out at my house, I can power my refrigerator and television as I've wired it into the box in my house. That changed the opinion of a lot of my friends of a Prius. And when I showed up the first day in Camp Hill, of course, all the power's out. Well, that Universalist church, it's the first Universalist church in Camp Hill. I believe it's the second oldest in the southern United States behind Charleston. You can look it up. First Universalist Church, Camp Hill. It is beautiful. And it has this stained glass that's over 100 years old. Church is about 123 years old. They've been here since 1846. We're probably the only town in the southeastern United States that originally was founded and built by Universalists. So they gave the land to Baptist and Methodist and all these other folks. So all the other land that the churches are built on, it's my understanding, came from the Universalists, because they're like, hey, we're Universalists, do your thing, right? Build your churches. And so when I pulled up, I noticed that unfortunately the windows that were uncovered had been hit by the hailstones. And thankfully, it's a very small amount of them. In the sanctuary itself, there's these big arched Gothic style that they did at the same time, but I needed to cover them with plastic as we had storms coming. I had no electricity, but I had an electric stapler, and I had my Prius, and I had plastic. So I ran the extension cord to my car, and over a couple of hours, we got the plastic installed. And we got it covered up so there couldn't be any more damage from the storm. And with Across, we're kind of looking at our approach to this very much the same way. We're trying to create novel solutions to some of these issues we're facing in rural Alabama and where I come from, and some new ways of thinking about how we can solve these problems. That's one part of it. The other, of course, is the educational piece of bringing people around on climate change and the climate crisis. And this fire chief, volunteer fire chief, who no one had probably ever talked to about climate change, has been working side by side with me for 3 weeks. And then I hear him in an interview with some media the other day say, this is a climate crisis. This is a harbinger of future storms, quoting the things that we've talked about. And we have this amazingly diverse group, this beautiful spectrum of people who are, we have an average of 6 to 8 volunteers daily running this thing while we're spending a lot of time here. And so, that's how we change hearts and minds. That's how we build power. And that's how we bring folks around on this in these rural places. So I'm here in Camp Hill. My email is warren@acrossalabama.org. There's a lot to learn here, y'all, and we need all the help we can get. So if you want to come, we get everything. We got it going now, got it going on at the Baptist Church. We'll be in the parsonage of the Universalist Church here pretty soon. Open invitation, anybody that wants to come to East Alabama and see us. Thank you.
Wow, just wow.
Mm.
First and foremost, Warren, let me say that I've been trying to get in touch with you, and I have yet to hear back from you. So I'm still waiting, and I wanted to make sure we got you on this call so I can pull you in and bend your ear about you not hitting me back yet. I'm trying to get to Camp Hill before I have to get back out of town, but I do have to leave next week. So hopefully we can do something over the weekend or something.
I got to get some more volunteers just so I can sort through these messages. I got about 400 on Facebook and another 40 in my email. So I'm going to get to you. And I know when I message you, it's only a matter of time.
I got you. So I want to start off, and please feel free if you all have any questions, since we've got a little time. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. You know what? Let me step back. Carroll, was this what you wanted to do next? I didn't even think about the agenda. I'm sorry. I got so excited.
You were spot on, Rev. Go, Rev.
Okay. I thought that's where we were. I just want to make sure because I didn't want to overshoot. So it was important that we not only look at some of the issues that we face in the Gulf and in the South, but also looking at some of the solutions. And we see not only a practical or a real-time issue that we're facing in Camp Hill, but we see how Warren has come in with his solutions and how Reverend Emily has also talked about some of the solutions that we can put in place within our communities using our resources, which is our land, and helping our neighbor. And then we hear also from Ms. MacIvers concerning some of the policies that we need to fight for that make sure that these things are put in place as well. I was so happy to hear Warren talk about how communities of faith have stepped up to utilize their property and help their communities that they serve. And that's one of the things that we really want to drive home with resilience to restoration. We want to make sure that these communities are utilizing their resources, or these congregations, are utilizing their resources to serve their community. Saying all that, and knowing that IPL spans the nation, and so does Green the Church span the nation in their advocacy, looking at it directly, seeing what Warren has talked about in issues that are happening right here within Alabama. My question for both Reverend Emily as well as Leah, are you all finding some of the same issues in other regions and other states that you hear Warren talk about?
Of course, being here in Louisiana, I mean, that is we are almost like capital city of every storm that's come through. And so definitely, as a person who is United Methodist and a lot of colleagues who are United Methodist pastors, all of what the ills that come our way because of just location and how climate change is almost seems to be increased the number of storms. So there's always pastor friends of mine who are cleaning or revamping their roofs, or having issues with water, having issues with mold, having issues in times of disaster, being able to be prepared for that. So definitely this dynamic of being prepared, disaster preparedness is definitely conversation amongst both congregations and just people in general who are in essence feeling the brunt of it, especially when insurance is slow to help out, and especially if you're a congregation who might be connectional but not getting the help that you need. And so people are thinking and recognizing that more can be done and has to be done for when, not if, the next storm hits. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in really quickly and say I totally agree with Reverend Emily. You know, I am from Houston, and we are also, you know, we're like also climate disaster central here in the Southeast. I think just in general, it's an area that's extremely prone to climate disasters. But yeah, and I think honestly, we're seeing climate disasters nationwide. You know, I only have my limited perspective of living in Texas, but really, I think that if you just open the news, you can see climate disasters far and wide across the country.
Now, Warren, what you thought, I mean, completely out of the box, there's no way in the world that I would have ever thought to take a Prius and rig it up to be a generator. I mean, Carroll has used his as a truck for I don't know how long. It seems like he does off-roading with his. But you, on the other hand, you took yours in a totally different direction. What even gave you that idea and that thought in the first place?
I was watching a thing online about how some folks actually live in them and they use them as housing in some of the other states. And I recognized that someone had a refrigerator, and I thought to myself, wow, that'd be really great for insulin. And the more research I did, I realized that not only can I power electric tools, I can charge the batteries for electric tools. And if you notice, a lot of the newer vehicles, they're starting to use those kind of promotions. And we've been doing it for 2 or 3 years now. And that was a big part of it. And it's interesting, like for me, being so rural where we are, I would love to have like 100% electric, right? But right now the hybrid is the best thing that we've got because I can't get out we don't have charging stations. And so essentially, to give you an idea of the efficiency, if you were to run a 3,000 watt generator on 5 gallons of gas, it's going to run for 4 days. And as I said, this will, for 11 gallons of gas, will push 2,000 watts for 8 or 9 days. So the efficiency is amazing. And there's some people, because they don't have on and off, they only have ready mode, who simply leave them on, right, all the time. And there's sometimes that I do the same thing. And because, of course, the internal combustion engine doesn't get the same wear and tear being hybrid and running off the battery sometimes, there's not the wear and tear there. My dream, of course, is for me to just be able to plug in somewhere and be able to carry that battery. But right now, of course, it's the best thing we've got going.
I said Carroll has a Prius. Carroll has a Leaf. I'm sorry. His is 100% electric that he drives like it's an off-road vehicle.
I do too.
I don't understand it. I just don't understand it.
Go ahead and Google lifted
again,
Prius. Rev, Google lifted Prius and you'll see what's coming.
Lifted Prius? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I will. I want to laugh. So if you all have any questions, if you would, just put your hands up. We want to make sure that these questions get answered. Carol, I will pass it over to you just in case you have any questions right now. Oh, Mel has a question. Reverend Mel.
Let me just say for Warren's benefit that the United Methodist Church in Florida and North Carolina have both outfitted disaster response trailers with solar panels. And so they are able to go to a site now and power all their tools with the backup that they have on that trailer.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and so you might want to talk to them in either North Carolina or Alabama, Florida, and see if they might be able to come help you.
That's a good idea. Thank you for that.
That's all I've got, Rev.
Thank you all. And again, for the folk who joined us late, we've recorded this, so you haven't missed anything. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel, the People's Justice Council YouTube channel. We'll be sharing with everyone who signed up, and a lot of folk who couldn't sign up due to the short notice. So we thank you all again for being with us here tonight. Other questions that might have come up?
I just wanted to also make mention, back in March the 31st, the U.S. Department of Treasury sent out guidance as it relates to EV vehicles. And it shared that in essence, based on all that is taking place within our administration, what will happen is there'll be a $7,500 credit for clean vehicles on vehicles that have a dollar amount of less than $55,000, and then for less than $80,000 for vans or trucks. So it's exciting to see not only the benefit of them as it relates to climate, but also as our government in essence gives financial benefits to those who do choose to purchase electric vehicles.
And I believe that is not applicable to used vehicles.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
think there
Reverend.
actually is a lesser amount for some used vehicles. So there's some rebate, but I'm not sure exactly how much it is, but it's a lesser amount. I think it's somewhere around $2,700 or $3,500. Do you know, Ileagh?
Yeah, actually, we've done some work on this, and the tax credit for used EVs is up to $4,000.
Thank you all. I'm going to, the pictures that I shared earlier, and then I'm popping back up on the screen now. This was when Warren came and gave a talk to my class at University of Montevallo. And Warren, if you would, I would just like for you to say a bit about that electric scooter. I might have blinked and missed it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I do travel with an electric scooter that stays charged in the car. It's a little bit of an upgrade over what you're going to get in a retail store. So it has about probably 40 to 50 miles of range, top speed of 25 to 30, which I never get anywhere near. And otherwise my wife would have a problem with that. But as you can see, I stay pretty geared up. And again, it's a way for me to get around. Like when I'm here and I have a little electric scooter, what we have is essentially almost a campus. The churches are all around each other. So it's pretty easy to zip back and forth, and it's kind of fun. So, you know, I could probably use a lot more of the walking, which I've been doing a lot of that lately too. And I said in the chat, I don't know if y'all saw, one of my big dreams, we're probably going to have a 2-bay shop here in town that's been abandoned, and take possession of that if we have a time, because one of my big concerns about electric, of course, is my rural folks, right? And the fact that it being something that's feasible for them. So if there's ever, because we do have electric retrofits for a lot of cars now, but it's not financially feasible. But if it ever becomes a thing, I would love to have a shop here that does those and gets grants to do electric retrofits on cars for rural folks to keep them going. Because we are left behind in a lot of the things as they move forward, rural broadband, all kinds of other things, but it would be nice to be on the forefront of things for once.
Amen. Well, in addition to, in our last few minutes here, in addition to any questions that might not have been asked that y'all think of, we have some of our wonderful Gulf partners from Resilience to Restoration here tonight. Resilience to Restoration, in short, is a Gulf state-oriented grant. We were granted $300,000 from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine to implement this thing we're calling From Resilience to Restoration. And it's all the stuff you've heard about tonight. As you have heard, it's not enough to become resilient, more resilient. You know, telling frontline communities you've got to become more resilient, it's like telling them, we're here to help you roll with the punches. And no, we've got to do restorative ecology, restorative economy, and restorative faith, ecumenical. Our 30 is ecumenical because a lot of toxic theology has gone into getting us into these situations. So it's a Gulf State oriented grant, but we don't want to stop there. We want to expand this throughout the South and beyond. We want, as you've heard, frontline community houses of faith are already leading the way. That's why we're focusing on them, but not limiting ourselves and working with houses of faith. We've got a community right here near Birmingham that may be a restoration community. But this is from resilience to restoration, a plan to move beyond resilience and restore the ecosystems, economies, and faith that will get us home. And we have some wonderful Gulf partners. In fact, Rev Emily is our newest partner. We're happy to announce that Louisiana was the only state we were missing in the Gulf South, and Rev Emily has so nicely filled that missing spot for us. We're very thankful to have her as our newest partner. But Rev Mel, that you've heard from, is our Texas partner. I believe we've got our Florida partner, UU Justice Florida. I see our Gulf Coast Creation Care folk. But Jan, Rhoda, any of y'all want to give us a quick update about what's going on in your neck of the woods? We'd love to hear it, but no pressure either.
I can tell you what's going on in Florida.
Go, Jan.
We're actually, we had Father Jose and Lawana and Janice and I and teams came to South Carolina for the We in the Nation conference. And so there's been a lot of discussion here from people from all over the country about restoration and about really needing to move toward that, all about reconciliation, about a lot of different things. So I think the consciousness is moving forward, and so that's really exciting to see. And so everybody, we did manage to get 7 applications into the EPA for their environmental justice grants.
Woohoo! Thank you for sharing. Amen. Anyone else?
And I would like to say that we are getting ready to do tours in all 5 of the Gulf states, where we want to come in and we want to speak with community members and really give hope around building out resilience and restoration plans, but also seeing how we can work together to resource those plans so we can see them become reality. Sister Jan has done an excellent job in Florida, and so we've decided that we are more than capable and willing to take it on the road to help out our other neighboring states as well. So be on the lookout for us, but also feel free to reach out to us if you desire to do a workshop within your community. We'd love to be able to connect and make that happen.
Sister Rhoda, Gulf Coast Creation Care.
Hey everybody, good evening. We had an electric vehicle showcase as part of the Mobile Earth Day event, and they estimate that there was about 225 people that came through. I think they had a good number of cars. I think they had about 35 vehicles or so. I can't remember exactly how many cars they had, but that was quite a big success. Our Africa Town Energy Efficiency Workshop is on task to happen June 21st through June 24th, and we're just recruiting families and volunteers for that right now. I'm also going to reach out to, there's a nonprofit organization here in Mobile. I think it's called Mobile Action or something like that. They help low-income folks with their energy bills. That's like their main thing. And I'm going to try to connect with them and find out if there's anybody in their organization that wants to come and do the training, or, I mean, it seems to me like it fits hand in glove with what they're doing, helping people with their energy bills, if we could get it expanded further than just Africatown. So that's a connection I'm going to try to make in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you for sharing. And Rev Emily, I understand you've got to sign off. Thank you so much for joining us. And back in the last 2 minutes, Rev Malcolm, if you would close us out, give us a benediction, please, sir.
I feel the need to give us a benediction in my tradition tonight. If you would, pray with me. Eternal One, we thank you for this opportunity for us to gather, to come together, to think about what it means to be community, whether it be in policy advocacy, or whether it be in practical implementation, or whether it be in disaster response. We thank you for the opportunity for us to collectively come together so that we can figure these things out together, so that we can walk together. We ask that you would continue to give us the strength, the knowledge, and the ability to move forward. Give us courage to fight, and give us love and compassion in our hearts for one another. We thank you now for all things. In your name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. And thank you all for choosing to be here with us tonight. We will see you on the recording. Cheers, everybody.